19 expeditions into the Himalayas and 4 expeditions up Mount Everest. Chris Bonington is Britain's most famous mountaineer, but as I discovered earlier, he's never climbed the Eildons.
I think they're lovely kind of peaks. In fact, they're volcanic plugs, aren't
That's
they?
correct, yes.
Yeah, no, I think it's most... I've never been in this little bit of the borders before, and I think it's very, very impressive. And of course, I live in the Lake District, and it's a lovely run along the line of the borders, actually, along the A7 to Melrose. So it's been a delightful drive here, and what a lovely place it is.
Tell me then a little bit about the 72 experience, because, ultimately it ended in disappointment, but I guess expectations were high going to Everest and trying to tackle Everest that particular year.
Well, the southwest face of Everest was a huge challenge. Already 3 expeditions had actually tried and failed to climb its southwest face. We actually managed to grab a cancellation. The mountain was just booked up years in advance. The Nepalese government only allowed 1 expedition on the mountain at a time. And so we had a very little chance of getting there, but we really wanted to have a go at it. And then there was this cancellation. It was only a few months before we were due to go, so we had a mad rush to get the expedition together. And it was in the autumn period, and at that time, no mountain of over 8,000 metre peaks had been climbed in the autumn. All the mountains were climbed in the spring before the arrival of the monsoon. So we knew when we set out, actually, that we had a tough kind of thing ahead of us. And as it happened, we'd started slightly too late. Our gear wasn't quite good enough, the team wasn't big enough, and we did no better than anyone else did. But we learnt a heck of a lot. And then there was another cancellation in the autumn of 1975. And this time we had a decent run-in. We had a year. And from what we learned, had a stronger team. I was the leader of the expedition. And we had more people, we moved faster, started a lot earlier. We climbed actually through the monsoon. And with all of these things, we succeeded.
Now, you're talking there about cancellations. Presumably, I would guess that there's a lot of planning goes into ensuring that everybody within the expedition party is properly prepared. But how do you go about organising an expedition from the point of view of notifying the people over thousands of miles away, over close to Everest, that you intend to climb, that you want to accept effectively the challenge of climbing the south face or climbing one of the faces of the mountain?
Well, you apply, basically the Nepalese regard it as business. And it's the Nepalese Ministry of Tourism that actually controls permissions, and you have to pay a fee to actually climb on the mountain. So, all of that, is a fairly routine kind of business. It helps if you have a representative in Kathmandu, which we did, and he did all the negotiating for us. And so we got the mountain that way.
I guess living in the Lake District, it's the perfect one of the best places. Perhaps even go as far as to say the perfect place in the UK to live, to grow up, because you're surrounded by mountainous areas and you really can appreciate what is round about you. But as a young man, was there this urge, to get out and to see a bit of the world and really try and conquer some of the highest peaks in the world? Take us back to the moment when you thought, I'm ready to do this. You've had that passion for a long time, but I'm now ready to really give myself a challenge.
Well, I'm not even sure it's about challenges, actually. I was born and brought up in London, Hampstead, and so I was a long, long way from the hills. And it was really when I was 16 that I actually discovered climbing. I went for long cycle rides, and I started walking in the hills a bit, and then I saw people who were rock climbing, and I thought, gosh, this would be something really nice to do. And found a friend of the family who'd done a bit of climbing, and I started climbing. And then every holiday, the long summer holidays, I'd hitchhike up to Scotland and climbed in the Western Highlands. The rest of the time I was climbing in North Wales or the Lake District or what have you. So the first passion was rock climbing. And then from that, when I went into the army, went to Sandhurst and was stationed in Germany, because you go back into the early 1950s, which this was, very different from today. I mean, my mum had never owned a car. I'd never been abroad before I was stationed in Germany in 1953. And then I started climbing in the Alps. And yeah, I was ambitious, yes, and I liked challenges. And I was good at what I was doing. And so, I started going for hard climbs in the Alps. And then I had my first Himalayan expedition, which was through the army, and made the first ascent of Annapurna too in 1960. And then another big expedition to climb Nuptse, which is the third peak of Everest. So that I was developing, I was evolving as a mountaineer. And it was in 1962 that I finally broke away from, if you like, a regular day job and committed myself to making a living around climbing.
And 19 expeditions into the Himalayas as well. We mentioned, touched on certainly one or two of your expeditions to Everest, but 19 in the Himalayas.
Yeah. Well, now it'll be more than that. I mean, these days I don't go on expeditions. I have nice little trips. They're very modest, but hopefully at the end of it I climb a nice small unclimbed peak. And that's what I love. I love the exploratory side of climbing, of actually going to places where people haven't been before and having to find your way up a mountain, finding your way up through a valley and things like that. And that's, to me, that's really important.